Hello and welcome to International Affairs. We will discuss the top issues going on around the globe, and we will have very distinguished panelists today. Anwarul Azim, Faculty International Relations, University of Dhaka, and of course we will have our International Affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto, and from Istanbul we will have a guest speaker who will be joining through Zoom. He will be giving us update on Trump's Putin and Zelensky's peace talks regarding Russia-Ukraine ceasefire or closing the war as per the calls from US President Donald Trump. Let's go to our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto first. What we are going to pick today, sir, in our discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan, and a very warm welcome to Mr. Anwarul Azim.
Thank you.
And a very lovely afternoon to our viewers. First of all, over the weekend, we've seen Mr. Trump, the President of the US, finish his Middle East visit. Apart from this, a ceasefire talk was initially held between Ukraine and Russia. However, it failed as 9 civilians were killed in a Russian drone strike afterwards. The UK and the EU are set to hold the first bilateral talk since Brexit era. And in very recent news, a Mexican Navy ship was seen colliding into the Brooklyn Bridge with casualties not reported yet, but injuries up to 19 people.
So there are many top headlines, but I have a breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Israeli airstrike on the tent encampment housing displaced families in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, has killed at least 24 Palestinians. This comes as mediators host a new round of talks between Israel and Hamas. The Times of Israel has broken the news. I will come to Anwarul Azim, Faculty International Affairs, University of Dhaka. Sir, if we look at the world's top headlines, we see Russia-Ukraine peace talks, India-Pakistan ceasefire, Israeli airstrikes in Gaza, all war, war and war. Yes. How you start your opening speech? Before you start your opening speech, I want to say war itself is the enemy of human race.
Definitely. I agree with you that war is always the enemy of human race. We are observing war for last 4 and 5 years, war after war. First, the world started experiencing the Russia-Ukraine war, and then severe humanitarian atrocities are going on in Palestine. We have seen that more than 60,000 Palestinians have been killed, and the whole area is out of food, out of aid, out of water, out of electricity. So it's a severe humanitarian crisis going on in Gaza, and unfortunately the world is not acting to stop the war. We are listening to many talks, we are listening to many comments from different world leaders, but no action, no serious action has been taken against Israel, so that Israel is compelled to stop the atrocities in Gaza. This is very unfortunate, and recently, among all the wars, it is a very promising development that India-Pakistan, the possibility of full-scale India-Pakistan war is now gone. It was, if there were an India-Pakistan war, that would be the third war that would be going on in the world. So, and as India-Pakistan is in South Asia, that would impact Bangladesh also. So this is the only positive development, war-related positive development in recent times.
But if I just do a compliment question to you regarding the Israeli airstrike in Gaza, yes. When Israeli take actions to Palestinian, the Western media writes that Israel take action against terrorism. Okay. When Israeli soldiers killed Palestinians, innocent women and children, they call it killing terrorism. When Palestinians retaliate, they call it terrorism. What is the definition of terrorism?
Well, this is, I would say, the double standard of Western media, because Israel actually occupied the territory of Palestinians, and this is not a new issue. It started in 1941. They displaced millions of Palestinians, they occupied their lands, they occupied their homes, and they have made Palestinians living a substandard life throughout last 70 years almost. So this is a double standard because Israeli airstrikes or Israeli military invasion, they are killing babies, they are killing children, women, children, and non-combatant. In a combat situation, when two armies fight, that is allowed in international law. But you cannot kill women, you cannot kill a person without any weapon, you cannot kill children. And in Gaza, almost half of the population are children. And the number of killings conducted by the Israelis, almost more than half are against children.
Do you call it human catastrophe?
Definitely human catastrophe, and the world should be ashamed that such human catastrophe is going on in Gaza for more than for a long time, but no punitive action has been taken so far.
Very well described. Let me go to our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho. I know, sir, you are following Ukraine and Russia peace talks, which literally failed in Istanbul. We'll be definitely connecting Istanbul to give us the update, but US President Donald Trump announced officially he will call Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday, I mean tomorrow, to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. This follows failed ceasefire talks between Moscow and Kiev. You are following the event, I know very well. What is your comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. Actually, Donald Trump is setting ground worldwide in order to initiate ceasefires in multiple zones. Last week or early last week, we have seen Donald Trump ending or calling a truce between India and Pakistan. According to media reports, nor Mr. Zelensky and nor Vladimir Putin has been present in the talk in Turkey, and I would say that it's still very volatile. The war between Ukraine and Russia has been running for well over 3 years with multiple casualties, and at this moment much of the border of Ukraine has been lost to Russia. So this creates a very dangerous notion. At this moment, Ukraine should reassess their damages, hold bilateral talk with Vladimir Putin's Russia. And as for your question, Donald Trump has initiated the meeting in Turkey. However, meeting yielded no results. Hence, he's still very positive about calling a truce between the two nations. And as per the report, he has initiated that for tomorrow. It's still a very progressive news, it's still a very progressing story. And I would think by the end of this week, certain kind of hostilities between Russia and Ukraine should be stopped.
I want to do one more question to you. Before I go to you, I have a breaking news from New York Post. 9 Ukrainians fleeing heavy Russian shelling near the front line were killed in a drone strike early Saturday, just hours after the truce talks failed. That means in Istanbul, both the countries are trying to sit for the talk for ceasefire, and the operations is also going. My question is, war is the invention of human. War is done in innovation. War is not a biological need. My question would be, how many wars world can afford?
Actually, as you know, it even affected us as a Bangladeshi nation when the Ukraine-Russia initially started fighting. And then the Red Sea grain initiative, a lot of the important seeds for human life, they were being halted at the Red Sea because of this fighting between Ukraine and Russia. So once again, it's very detrimental to the whole world and in the coming future that a war should be continued. Yet both countries and multiple war fronts around the world should come together to understand each other's differences in order to solve their own problems.
Okay, I'll come to IR professor who reads international relations, who writes international relations, who are speaking today on international relations. My question would be a little bit tricky. That is, Ukraine is paying for its ambition to join NATO. Western players are enjoying the war with Russia. So, though it is a front and battle between Russia and Ukraine, but Westerns are engaged. What do you think, that will it be continued, or President Donald Trump will be able to stop it right here, right now?
Okay, it depends on what one of the criteria to stop the war from Russian perspective, because Russia is another party to the war, that when President Putin invaded Ukraine, so he had the suspicion, or Russia had the suspicion, that Ukraine might join NATO. And if you see the NATO charter, if you go to the NATO charter, in Article 5, it is said that if one NATO country is, NATO member country is attacked by another country, it will be deemed as an attack to all of NATO countries. So Russia cannot afford to have a NATO member nation at its backyard. So from Putin's perspective, either he had to allow Ukraine to join NATO, or he had to invade Ukraine. Previously, Russia had tried to stop Ukraine from joining NATO diplomatically, but it failed. So it was the last resort from Russian perspective to invade Ukraine and to stop the possibility of Ukraine joining NATO, because there was a treaty after the Cold War that told that NATO will not expand just adjacent to the Russian border, but Western countries violated that treaty. So it created a sense of insecurity among the Russian policymakers. So that's why they decided to go to Ukraine. But now, in order to stop the war, because it started by Russia, in order to stop the war, Russians or President Putin must show to the Russian people that they have gained something from the war. And that's they're asking from, in their negotiation table, exactly that they're asking, that they need 4 regions of Ukraine that must be, they want that 4 regions. So, but from the Ukrainian perspective, President Zelensky is not willing to consider this proposal. So, unless and until Russia gets something from the war, there is less possibility that the war might stop. So, we need to focus on what Russia gets, what Ukraine are willing to concede, and from the West's perspective, this war is financed, this war, the military equipments are supplied by the Western countries, hundreds of billions of dollars of military weapons. So, as long as they continue to supply the weapons to Ukraine, the war is not going to stop.
Okay, very well explained, Anwarul Azim, Faculty International Relations, University of Dhaka. I'll go to our international commentator, Shamsul Alam Pantho. Before I go to you, I would just like to read out one a quote from Frederick Moore. He said, "Words are not facts of God. Words are not acts of God. They are caused by man, by man-made institutions, by the way in which man has organized the society." Before I ask you the question, I will add something like the world has been witnessed COVID, world has been witnessed Russia-Ukraine war, destroying Syria, Israel-Gaza war, India-Pakistan short-term war. How long the world can afford this kind of wars, because the economy of the world is going down?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Kanchan. First of all, you mentioned COVID. I'd like to input here to our viewers and everyone else. Hong Kong and Singapore see a rise in COVID numbers over the weekend. And not just that, you mentioned that wars are human-made, and it's a quell between, or it's a very bad competition between the two sides of any given war. Actually, the economy and the households all over the planet are sufferers of such war, and I would say it should be avoided in the future. The last 5 years have been very detrimental to human health, human welfare. If you would say, in the Israel-Palestine conflict, it's been a historical conflict over multiple decades, and we've seen the slow eradication of the Palestinian people. from their own homeland. This is a very bad notion to any country, and as I can reaffirm, Russia and Ukraine are at it, just like Israel and Palestine. And there are much more examples all over the world. There's North Korea and South Korea, as a landmass that is divided by a border, but also divided by leadership. So once again, I would reaffirm that it is very detrimental to the human health, to the human future. A war is a contest of two sides eagerly to show which side has the more benefit in power, in terms of firepower, in terms of economic wealth. And it really is like an international level bullying event, war. A three-letter word that is condemned by the entire planet. So once again, I would say war to be avoided, and most definitely the impacts that it has on humans and likewise is not a very good impact, and it won't give fruitful advantages in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very strong words you have used. We are discussing about war, how world will afford so many war. Before I go to a diplomatic question to you, as you teach international relations, I want to say every war is a war against children. Every war is a war against women. Every war is a war against civilian innocent people, and when rich men go to the war, it is the poor to die. When generals go to the war, it is the soldiers to die. And when war doesn't make the boys into men, war puts man into debt. I want to ask you a very small question. Do you think war is destroying the entire planet's economy as well?
There is no doubt about that. During a war, only the weapons manufacturers make profit.
So you call it war is a business?
War is definitely a business, because you can see whenever there is war, there are supply of weapons, there is supply of ammunition, there is supply of other accessories that are contributing to the war effort, and only the weapons manufacturers makes profit from them. So it is a kind of a business, and at the same time, war is a kind of thing that the victim of war are always the general people. General peace-loving people are the victims of war. So as long as we can force our policymakers to go for economic welfare of the general people, then only then we can see less war from the perspective in the world.
We have other issues to pick. I think our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho will agree that Poland is heading to a presidential election, where the Poland's president himself is widely criticized for so many acts into this war, Russia-Ukraine war. Poles are heading to the polls to elect their next president, as incumbent Andrzej Duda's second term comes to an end. The election will test the country's pro-EU stance amid rising nationalism. Poland is a very strong member of NATO, and Poland has opened its border for the Ukrainians. In the border of Poland, the Westerns are pushing their arms and tanks to what we call Ukrainians to fight against Russia. So Poland is a big patron of this war for Ukraine. What is your observation in that?
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. First of all, I hope that the presidential election in Poland goes smooth and swiftly, and that they can renew a new leader for their national interest. Not just that, Poland shares a very close border with Ukraine and Russia, and Poland's ideal goal should be not to get involved directly into a fist fight with the ongoing crisis in Ukraine and Russia. However, they should reassess their national interest, the interest of their own people over the people that are migrating in the face of war from Ukraine. And as per the news reports, Warsaw's mayor, Mr. Rafal, is among the leading contenders who may have a chance at becoming the next leader in Poland. And I believe that since they are helping in a de facto way with the Ukrainians, I think they should have a nationwide unity a call for unity to understand their priorities regarding the Ukraine-Russia issue.
Sir, in your opening text, you are talking about one Mexican Navy ship crashes
Yes.
into Brooklyn Beach. This is very interesting because this Navy ship, how come it comes to the Brooklyn like inside the Hudson River in New York? News says a Mexican Navy training ship collided with the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City, killing 2 people and injuring at least 19.
Right.
The ship's towering mast clipped in bridge, causing significant damage of the bridge. Do you find, because USA and Mexico relationship is bitter and sweeter, in that case Mexican Navy is taking training in US, inside US. How do you see this?
First of all, Donald Trump has renamed the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America, if you wanted to know between the bilateral ties between Mexico and America. However, the video that we've seen circulating online, it shows that the mast is very lit up with lights and all. It was most likely a festive visit to the US. The commander of the ship made a fatal mistake, and at the one end of the Brooklyn Bridge, it collided with the mast. It ended up injuring 19 people and 2 casualties, as per your report. This is very well, the video suggested that it could be an accident, a human error. Human error, as you know, is very normal when operating such a ship. My solemn condolences to the 2 lives that were lost. It's a very big accident today.
But I'm sure there will be a huge media, battle between Mexico and US media outlets regarding this. I'll come back to Anwarul Azim. You teach international relations. According to the war situation right now around the globe, and we are getting information that China, Taiwan, Indonesia, Australia and Russian interference in Indonesia are not tolerating by Australian government. These are hints that in eastern part of the world also there are something going to be witnessed by the world. What is your observation in this current world situation? Do you think still the unipolar control will be, or by many countries will be the leader in different areas of the world?
Okay, I will start with the Australian one. Australia thinks that the adjacent
You studied in Australia.
I studied in Australia. So Australians think that the adjacent areas of Australia is under the influence, under the sphere of local sphere of influence of Australians. So whenever in those areas, including Indonesia, other countries try to interfere, it is not viewed positively by the Australians. So and secondly, the more important and probably more serious issue is the Taiwan issue. Taiwan thinks they are independent nation, but they are recognized by only a few countries in the world. On the other hand, China thinks that Taiwan is part of China.
Yep.
So that's why, and that's why China is ready to do anything if China declares independence, formal independence, and other countries come to help China militarily, and it might create a situation where it might go to a military conflict. So that would be a very sad day for the world, because China is world's second largest economy and they are rising very fast. And Taiwan, on the other hand, is supported by the Western countries. So that battle, if that happens, we hope it will not happen ever, but if that happens, that will be that will have more detrimental impact on the world economy and the general population.
Do you find the potential of Chinese war movement, because China does not have so much of war history? China did not invade any country. China is struggling with 2 islands, Hong Kong and Taiwan both, because Westerns are supporting Hong Kong and Taiwan as independent country, where China is claiming that these 2 islands is their strong economic island. In that case, don't you think that this is a poke from Western countries to kept busy China into war?
So as long as China is not being poked, there is less possibility that China will involve in any kind of war, because if you see China, they really focus on business opportunities around the world. They really focus on the investment opportunities around the world. In recent history, you cannot find any example where China invaded any country.
Yes.
China does not have military installations all over the world. So until and unless they are being poked and being seriously poked by other countries, China is not going to do anything militarily. But one thing you need to remember, that China is the second largest economy in the world. China is seriously and very fast, they're increasing their military budget. They have the second largest military budget in the world after United States. So they are developing their militarily very rapidly.
They are the second largest military in the world.
The second largest military in the world. They have the second largest budget, military budget after United States. And China's military, they're investing in high-tech weapons. For example, in recent India-Pakistan war, we have seen that Chinese J-10C fighter jets, they have downed Rafale fighter jet, Indian Rafale fighter jet. So it is a mark of Chinese upgradation of their technology.
Very sophisticated and very
Yes.
high-tech military equipments they have introduced and they are supplying to their
Yes.
countries.
So they are increasing their capability.
Yeah,
day
very
by day.
well, fair enough, very well explained. I want to go to our international commentator Shamsul Alam Panto, who was keenly watching few of the wars and trades issues with China. You know, sir, gentlemen call that old men declare war. It is the youth to die. So in the world and history of the world, history of the war, we see all old men declared and fought, but it is the young men to die. My question will be, there is a proverb in Western, if you want to secure yourself, you have to make ties with Western. If you want to develop with business, you have to look at China. But China is doing their business, as well as China is expanding its budget, according to Anwarul Azim, on military issues. Do you find that China is going to dominate entire Eastern Asia or in the world as well as a big player?
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. I would like to add to Mr. Azim's notion regarding China. China and the South China Sea, if you would say, is shared, the South China Sea is shared with Vietnam, Philippines and East Malaysia. According to the media reports, we've seen the Chinese Coast Guard bullying or harassing people or vessels from the Philippines. The Philippines then have issued a worldwide call that China is breaking their maritime law. And China does have recent developments in some of the islands surrounding the Chinese waters, namely the Spratly Islands. They have built military infrastructure there. Of course, this is to uphold and strong arm the Chinese military's capabilities. First of all, as per the China and Taiwan relations go, Taiwan is a huge manufacturer of semiconductors, piece of equipment that is used in almost all electronic devices, from the aircraft to the handheld mobile phone that you see. So any kind of escalation between China and Taiwan would make sure that the world, there's a worldwide shortage of mobile phones, which can be very detrimental, figuring out that China and Taiwan should never go into a war, although historical claims do suggest that Taiwan used to belong to China. However, after the independence from China, Taiwan has bolstered its economy and its country and has allied up with the Western powers. So, as you can see, once again, that this is a territorial dispute between the two nations, and that a certain escalation would cause a damage to all of the economic households in the world. And I would say that China, being a major power in the Asia, is the sleeping dragon. They should reassess where their priorities lie.
Sir, thank you very much. Time has come to go for a short break. We'll come back and we'll pick some other issues of international affairs. Stay with us. Let us come back from break. to the International Affairs at SATV Live Special Edition show from SATV studio. We'll look at the South Asian perspective right this moment. Last week, world has witnessed fight between two neighboring countries, nuclear neighboring countries, India and Pakistan. I want to start from you. And within 68 hours, they have gone to ceasefire. It is very different incident in this world. Within a very short time, they have gone to ceasefire. What you speculate after this ceasefire? If anyone breaks, it goes to a dangerous situation.
Surely, because India and Pakistan both are nuclear power nations. Both have nuclear weapons. India has, it is estimated that India has around 160 to 170 nuclear weapons, and on the other hand, Pakistan has 170 to 180 nuclear weapons. And the destructive power of nuclear weapons we have experienced in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So when there is there are war between two countries that do not have nuclear weapons, they can use cannons, they can use tanks, they can use other bombs. But when there is a war between two nuclear weapon countries, so one nuclear weapon can destroy one city. That's why it's very dangerous. The stakes were very high, and that's why United States actually interfered and told and negotiated with both the parties, and as a result, both the countries agreed to a ceasefire because both are nuclear power.
But sir, first day US President Donald Trump said, I rang to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he is my good friend, and he agreed to go for a ceasefire. And State Department says that they have, Marco Rubio especially says that he talked with the Pakistani President Shahbaz Sharif, he agreed for the ceasefire. But one day later, President says, I did not. I just advised them to go for a ceasefire. Shamsul Alam Pantho, do you find any, fishy? I feel it fishy, the US activities regarding the subcontinent.
Over the last week, the leader of USA was in the Middle East. I'll bring you close ties into the India-Pakistan issue. The ceasefire, we've seen both sides violating the ceasefire, not just that, the DGMO of both countries, the Director General of the Military Operations, they both sat down, and according to the media reports, today is the 18th May. So the ceasefire has extended to the 18th May. I'm not still sure of how long or will there be an extended time period of the ceasefire. But as per the conflict on both of the sides, the water sharing issue has not been addressed yet. The Indian side has said that this will be decided at a future date regarding the water sharing, which definitely is one of the most provocative actions on the side of India, stopping the Indus waters, which would have a very bad effect for the Pakistani people. And not just that, Donald Trump's request for them to stop fighting. There are some benefits to this. The casualties in the last 8 days have stopped ever since the ceasefire call on the May 10th, which is very good. We've seen both of the sides, the civilians were out on the streets celebrating and thanking Donald Trump in their communities for the ceasefire. Not just that, it's still very early to say. We should see until the end of this month where India and Pakistan lie in the diplomatic front, and hopefully that they can look across their differences and do for their own people.
Very well said, Shamsul Alam Pantho, our international affairs commentator. I want to again come back to Anwar Azim. As we are not able to connect with Turkey, we have to wait till he picks up our connections. I want to draw one more attention that Bangladesh is in a strategic location, very important strategic location of South Asia and for the world, for the Asia as well. China is very interested to invest in Bangladesh. United States want to do some strategic alliance with Bangladesh. India is our very long neighboring countries, 4,800 miles, and also near Bay of Bengal they have Indian Oceans. Do you think Bangladesh will be able to face three giants, world superpower, with very intelligence and smartness?
Actually, we have to face them because the world geopolitical scenario is changing very rapidly, as China is rising, so China is also interested in Bangladesh, USA is also interested in Bangladesh, European Union is also interested in Bangladesh. So there are competing interests between these three major countries and organizations. As a result, this creates a challenge for us. At the same time, this also creates opportunity for us, because as everyone is interested, we can go for more investment, we can ask for more investment from them, we can ask for technology transfer from all the sides. So that will actually, if we can harness this relation with all the countries, and as we are a peace-loving country, we are not a country that went to war with different countries. So as we are a peace-loving country, I hope that we will be able to manage our diplomatic relations between the three conflicting or competing parties, and we'll be able to
all are superpowers.
All are superpowers, yes, all are superpowers. But so far, we have been able to manage our relation with all the superpowers fairly well. But we'll have to do more in future.
Shamsul Alam Pantho, I just want to know, I'm very curious. He said that Bangladesh has the challenge to face all the superpowers, as because they have all interest about Bangladesh, as well as Bangladesh has the opportunity. How do you explain this opportunity?
Thank you. Once again, I'll initiate a news report I got over the last 2 days. First it was 100 people, then it was roughly 200 people. And over the weekend, we've seen an attempt of 700 people pushing into our borders, which was very lovely, which was very well quelled by the border guard of Bangladesh. So there is a very big notion that India is trying to play with us in the border. This is by no means acceptable as per our government's policies. Not just that, in the neighborhood, we are seeing fighting going on in the state of Burma, or otherwise known as Myanmar. So we must understand what is there in the Bangladeshi neighborhood. And not just that, our military spending should be re-advised in the upcoming budget based on such criterias. Recent news that I heard that India was trying to create a trade border or a trade route, a sea route, which would cross over through the Bangladeshi sovereign waters from the port city of in Myanmar all the way to Kolkata. This would definitely go, if they used a naval route, it would go over the Sundarbans, over the sovereign waters of Bangladesh. And they do plan on investing in creating a road that would touch through the Seven Sister Corridor and all the way to the, like this, all this would do is take the pressure off the chicken's neck.
Do you find it as a poking to go for a clash between the two neighboring countries?
Of course, this is a provocation by all means. Not only pushing their people into Bangladesh without any kind of formal documentation, without any kind of formal talk, also without any kind of formal messaging between the two foreign ministries. So this is definitely, as per Bangladesh, we should look at it as a very hostile action by the Indian side.
Sir, I will ask you one more question, but before that I want to come to Anwarul Azim. One interesting news has come in the newspaper that India is cancelling one by one the agreement between Bangladesh and India in terms of trade relations, tariffs, using borders. But Bangladesh is not talking about any agreement from Bangladesh side. What do you think?
Yes, India is cancelling some agreements. They have stopped our transshipment facilities. And first of all, we need to talk to them. We need to go through the diplomatic measures, and if that fails, remember, we import more than $12 billion of Indian products every year. So we might need to go for some punitive measures, just like India. Okay. So because it's at the end of the day, national interest matters. So Bangladesh must uphold their national interest, and if necessary, we will have to go for some punitive measures in trade areas or in other areas, so that we can face India at an equal standing.
So far I know, if any country cancels the agreement, then the other party can go to World Trade Organization, WTO. Do you think in this regard Bangladesh should start to talk with WTO?
Yes, but we need to remember the WTO dispute settlement process is a lengthy process. It requires at least 1 year, or if with appeal, it will require at 1 year and 3 months or 4 months to settle the dispute. So, if we want to settle the dispute immediately, or if we take some kind of punitive measures from our part, I expect that what Indians are doing, they are cancelling the treaties, they will come back to the negotiation table. But if negotiation fails, negotiation should be the first step, but second step should be going to international organizations and resorting to international laws.
I will have one question for both of my panelists. It is the Bangladeshi people, it is the Bangladeshi citizen to decide which government will rule the country, which government will stay or which government will go. My question is, why neighboring country in India, they are very concerned about the Bangladeshi democracy. Don't you think it is the interference from outside, and it is the insulting to a sovereign country, it is the humiliating to a sovereign country and its citizen to interfere its democracy?
Well, first of all, interfering in any kind of domestic matter of other countries is prohibited in international law. So, any country that is making comments or interfering in our domestic affairs, that is violating international law, and we hope that India will follow the norms and the rules of international law.
India doesn't follow any norms, sir. I want to take your attention because you have seen the Indian media activities last 10 months about
Yes.
Bangladesh and Bangladeshi democracy.
The spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs in India, in a recent address with journalists, he said that the democracy was not conducted currently in Bangladesh, and that there is an unelected government right in place, the interim government, and the MEA reinforced that Bangladesh should have free, fair and conclusive elections. However, that is a matter that's purely based on the notion of common Bengalis. That's a decision that's meant to be taken by Bangladesh solely. Of course, in the near future, I would want a very beautiful election in which we are following the international standard of how to host elections, to rule out vote rigging, to rule out a probable counting of the votes for various parties. I'm sure in the 2018 election, we've seen a decision, a night vote,
Yes.
you would call it. It's very popular with that phrase, a night vote. We should avoid that in all circumstances, to take in to allow proper timing before we can conduct such an election. Of course, this coming December timeline was initially given by the interim government sometime between next December and next June, before Ramadan, next Ramadan. So definitely an infrastructure has to be built regarding this election process, and once again we should be able to install democracy to the people of 200 million people.
Yes, sir. We are at the last part of the program, so I want to draw both of your attention into breaking news. One is that tornadoes swept through US Midwest, killing 25 at least. Severe tornadoes have swept through the US Midwest, especially including Kentucky and Missouri, resulting at least 25 deaths and numerous injuries. BBC has given this news. On the other hand, the UK and the EU are set to hold their first bilateral summit since Brexit on Monday in London. Key points of discussion include trade relations and regulatory alignment. Commentator says that it is a US success to bring Britain out of EU and to make EU weaker, to be dependent on NATO and US allies. As an international affairs professor, what do you think?
Well, after the Brexit vote, there were much dissatisfaction among many people, in particular the younger generation. They were not satisfied with Brexit. So there were calls that there should be another vote after 2 and 3 years to see whether England or Britain wants to rejoin the European Union. But the political parties did not really agree to that. So that's why, in order to coordinate their defense policy, in order to come to a defense agreement, in order to coordinate their trade policy, this summit is going to happen. And as a result of Brexit, actually UK economy suffered a lot. So they are trying to repair some of the damages that was made because of Brexit.
Shamsul Alam Pantho, do you find any possibility that UK will again come back to EU to strengthen itself, its military strength, economic strength, creating jobs, controlling domestic violence, developing its national health care policy? Do you find any potential? Because Anwarul Azim has given a hint that young generation, they didn't like Brexit.
If you look at it geographically, the United Kingdom is right next to the EU nations, and not just that. When Brexit initially came about, a mass exodus of people had left the UK. And what this did was it left with many jobs that didn't have enough personnel to fulfill their roles. And what that does to a nation is it brings upon an impact toward its productivity and its national output. Hence, the younger generation there in UK, they would definitely be benefited by rearranging themselves once again with the EU, and doing so it would definitely boost each other's currency. Not just that, after Brexit what we've seen is that the cross-border trade between all of these nations and the UK, it has plummeted, which is definitely a toll on the Britain currency.
So you find a little bit force from the young generation, they want to be united to protect themselves, right? So ladies and gentlemen, this was our picks from today's international headlines and international burning issues. We'll be back tomorrow, and thank you very much, and thanks to our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho and faculty of Dhaka University International Relations Anwarul Azim. And we missed the connections with Istanbul. We are apologize for that due to some technical reason. I'll see you tomorrow.